Hello and welcome to this week's edition of the Weekly Wind-Up with me, Dave Hodgson. During the Balkans conflict of the early 1990s, the Bosnian town of Srebrenica was declared a UN safe area in 1993 under the watch of the United Nations Protection Force. In July 1995, General Ratko Mladic and his Serbian paramilitary units overran and captured the town, despite its designation as an area free from any armed attack and any other hostile act. In the days following Srebrenica's fall, more than 8,000 Bosnian Muslim men and boys were systematically massacred and buried in mass graves. Thousands of women, children and elderly people were forcibly deported and a large number of women were raped. It was the greatest atrocity on European soil since the Second World War. The International Court of Justice and the International Criminal Tribunal for the Former Yugoslavia ruled that the mass execution of Bosniak men and boys in Srebrenica constituted genocide. My guests today are Aisha Mirza and Katie Parker, who are regional board members for the charity Remembering Srebrenica. Aisha, Katie, welcome to the programme. So, what makes you two ladies come in here today? Is it an important day for you?
It is. Aisha and myself are representing the charity Remembering Srebrenica UK, which is a charity that raises awareness about the genocide that happened in Srebrenica during the Bosnian War and the Bosnian War in general, and also is there to create peace relationships and make sure that genocide and war is prevented across Europe.
Mm-hmm. What happened in Bosnia?
There was the breakup of what we know as Yugoslavia. There was a war broke out over, some say territory, some say it was it is believed to be ethnic cleansing, where there were Serbian forces wanting to gain more territory in Bosnia. So they began systematically, ethnically cleansing the Bosniaks, which were predominantly Muslims, the Serbian, which were predominantly Christian of background. They began ethnically cleansing systematically through Bosnia to gain more land, territory, and also to gain more of a stronger
bargaining position
Yeah.
sort of thing in the world.
Yeah.
Yes, I can understand that. But sorry?
So I was going to say, I think what is really shocking about the Bosnian War, I mean all wars are shocking, but what is particularly shocking about that is that it happened in the 90s, so 15, 20 years ago, and it happened in Europe. And this is not what we sort of have in our mind when we start thinking about genocide and we start thinking about wars. We think of it as something that happens in some nebulous way, like, you know, in another part of the world.
Somewhere else.
This happened in Europe, and this happened with the whole international community watching, and that's why it's so important for us to be here and to still be talking about it and still be having conversations about it. That's what's particularly shocking.
I'm interested to know more about the charity itself. What are your roles in it?
So our roles are, Aisha and I are both regional board members for the charity, so we're responsible for running events and promoting events that happen across the Northwest. And also Aisha and myself were very lucky to take and deliver the first ever women's delegation to Bosnia.
That's correct.
Obviously, as we mentioned before, it's estimated that around 50,000 women were victims of sexual violence during the Bosnian War, and it's one of the first ever recorded and recognised cases of genocide or rape, which means that rape and sexual violence were a part of the genocide.
Endemic, yeah.
Yeah, it was systemic, it was endemic. It was a way to not only dismantle families and communities, but also to disrupt that for future generations. And so we were very lucky to be able to take the first ever women's delegation over to Bosnia on a delegation that looked specifically at women during the war, and then specifically at how women are responsible for rebuilding those communities now.
How were you received when you got there?
We were received really well. The Bosnian community that you meet out there are very, very warm, very welcoming, very generous. However, when you do go out there, you still feel a sense of depression.
Yeah, and tension.
Yeah, and there is still a lot of sadness. You feel like you've actually entered into a different time zone, because you feel like you've been transported back into the 80s. Everything stands quite still. However, you do see there is a lot of new organisations that are trying to rebuild a community that are still very, very scarred from the war.
Is it still ethnically divided, or are people starting to get on with one another better than they did in the 1990s?
Yeah, I think what you'll find with a lot of the Bosnian community, they will tell you that they were the most integrated community pre-war. Christian, Muslim, all the different denominations, all very integrated.
Very much so.
And if you want to look at a community from an interfaith perspective, it was the most celebrated, I would say, personally.
Yeah, there's a road in Bosnia where you've got a mosque and a synagogue and a church all on the same street, and it's beautiful. It's wonderful to walk down that street and see that.
Hello and welcome to Purple Dog. We deliver first aid and health and safety training courses. We either do them in the classroom, online, or we can come to you. We make sure that you're legally compliant. On all our courses, well, they're fun, they are really enjoyable, and at the end of it you get a certificate.
They are very professional and thorough, and we make sure we know what we're doing before we go out and provide first aid to anyone that needs it.
It's a legal requirement for us to have a first aid trainer at work. I'm really looking forward to the course.
I came to Purple Dog for their first aid training because of their reputation, and I've heard that their courses are interactive and fun. If you're a parent or a grandparent, first aid training would be great because lots of accidents happen at home.
Contact us at purpledog.ltd.co.uk or 01484 546 780 or info@purpledog.ltd.co.uk.
However large or small your business, attracting new customers requires dedication and a lot of patience. Just like fishing, but you also need the right gear. Rods, reels, lines, hooks,
sinkers, lures, tackle box, tackle bag, net, bait, gas gloves, clothes, pocket knife, roach.
Or you could simply advertise with KLTV. Online, grow your business and your clientele. KLTV, your vision made reality. Should have gone to KLTV.
Let's look ahead to what hopefully will be happier times. When it was Yugoslavia, it was well up on the tourist route, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Do you see any mileage in now that the peace has broken out, whether it be the right sort of peace or not, I don't know, in creating a tourist industry, getting people together and working together through that and earning hard-earned foreign currency to bolster the economy?
Tourism is just so important to the economic recovery of Bosnia. It really is, and it's such a beautiful country. Particularly places like Mostar, I think, are just completely overlooked as holiday destinations. However, I think a lot of the reason why there is such low-level tourism in Bosnia is because people still have a perception of the war happening.
That it's not safe.
I remember that I've been to Bosnia maybe 4 times now, and I remember the first time that I went, my parents were really worried about me going there, and they said, I think somebody asked me if it was in Africa as well. And I think people's view of Bosnia is just so, either factually incorrect or outdated,
Yes.
I think that has a massive impact on tourism.
Back to the charity now, having to put the world to rights. A charity needs events to raise money. What sort of events do you have planned in the near future?
Well, we've got a number of events. I mean, the whole point of Remembering Srebrenica is what they do is they take delegates out to Bosnia. We learn about the genocide, we learn about the history, we learn about the war. So as delegates, when we come back to the UK, we then are able to share lessons, spread the message of peace and hope and unity back out into the community through community champions. So there are community champions all over the UK. Manchester, we are hoping in our town, we've got, I think there is about 150 events that are happening all over the UK. We have a week long of events in Manchester. We in particular are organising one on the 10th of July.
Which is a huge fundraising dinner that's going to be happening in Longsight in Manchester. Anybody can attend, and all the money is going to go not only to Remembering Srebrenica, to help in the work that we do there, but also it's going to go to the Bosnian community that live in Manchester, because I think what people forget is that there are lots and lots of Bosnian refugees and Bosnian community members living in the UK that might be still struggling to sort of...
Well, yes, and it would be such a shame with the current political climate here if you almost had the same thing and you felt oppressed because you didn't come from this country.
And I think something that we were talking about on the train on the way down here is that in our Remembering Srebrenica booklet there are sort of 10 steps to genocide and like warning signs and things. What we're really concerned about is seeing those things repeated in our community. Breakdowns of unions, breakdowns of communities, divisions, rhetoric, us and them. These things should not be overlooked in the stepping stones to war and genocide, and we want to work really hard to make sure that people are aware of that.
Right then, here on KLTV, let's make a start. Obviously, working for your charity means it's an interfaith, an intergeneration, and everybody are working together. If anybody thinks that's for me, I'd really like to do something, how do they get in touch with you to come and join you and possibly see about working with you?
Well, loads of ways. They can first they can contact Remembering Srebrenica directly and become a delegate, so they can apply to go over to Bosnia. That's an excellent way. Such quality experience.
Find about it firsthand.
Find about it firsthand, and then run their own events. And then they can contact me and Aisha on the Remembering Srebrenica Northwest Facebook page. But you know more about the social media than I do.
Well, basically, also, they don't have to do that. If there is actually, on the Remembering Srebrenica website, there is actually lots of resources, lots of ways that they can get involved in their locality. They can get in touch with their, each region has their regional chair, so they can get in touch with them to find out what activities might be going on, because it's not just in Memorial Week that we have events. We want to try and have events all through the year, so it's about going into schools, it's about educating young people, because like you said earlier about about the repeat of history, we don't want to see the repeat of history. We don't want to see them and us. We don't want to see what we're seeing now, a rise of hate towards the other. So it's about educating people that actually we're not very different, and how can we work together to create a community and a cohesive community.
Thanks to my guests Aisha and Katie. If you'd like to comment on this or any other stories, send them via email to info@kirkleeslocaltv.com or search on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you for watching this week. We'll be back next week, so goodbye and take great care of yourself.